the whole church thing makes me nervous. I don't like talking about it because church is strange. Church people are crazy. Keep this in here. Church people are crazy.
I'm gonna start it with this.
Yeah, do it.
All right, welcome back. It is the Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, and I'm sitting across from
Andy Williamson.
And we actually have a very interesting guest today. And I say interesting because before I get into one of the 15 different directions we could take this podcast that would provide value, let me give some advice to new podcasters. If you're starting a podcast and you invite somebody that has their own
media company,
you have to be prepared for that person
feedback
to change every detail that you've spent the last 30 minutes and 17 shows doing because they don't like the way the light looks.
Well, hold on. Let me say something now. It's not the way you've had it for all the 17 shows. It's not true. I came in here and I thought I was going to prison. The lights were so bright, and I feel like
We're under construction. So if you've been watching, this isn't the final setup. Okay, we got some things coming.
Stages.
Yeah.
So, just so you guys understand, when you have a media guru come in here, they're going to poke some holes in your plan, and that's okay.
I asked questions. I didn't poke holes. I just asked
some
questions.
holes. Was he poking some holes, Philip?
A lot of holes poked.
Philip's blood pressure is now 270 over 40.
I can't even enjoy my energy drink now.
So, all right. So if you're watching, you're seeing we are sitting with Andy Williamson. Andy Williamson is the owner of Theory Communications and Design. That is his day job. Mm-hmm. He moonlights as the pastor of Factory Church, which is, I would go out on a limb and say, one of the fastest growing, he can confirm or deny this, one of the fastest growing churches in all of Charlotte metro area. Are we saying greater Charlotte area?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so today we're going to talk a little bit about branding. We're going to talk a little bit about how Factory, what his focus was when trying to build that brand, but then also how that applied, what were some of the similarities trying to grow his initial business, which is Theory Communications Design, and what he learned from that. So for those of you that don't know Andy, you are in for a treat.
Athlete of the month in 2016.
He was the 2016 Athlete of the Month at Vitality. But there's a lot of different ways we're gonna take this, and this is I kind of went against everything that I've believe in because I usually prep. I usually have a piece of paper that Philip yells at me because it's in the way of things, and I've got this whole thing bulleted out. I just said, you know what? I have this feeling we're going to be just fine with what content we're going to talk about today. So before we get into that, can you talk us through, Andy? You can give your version, then I'll give my version
sure.
of day one. Like, what happened day one when you came to meet me?
I'll give the true version.
Okay.
So first of all, I was just not wanting to be fat. And so I lived in Skybrook at the time, and I moved up here from South Florida, from Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and I didn't have a gym or anything up here. So I just started to run in my neighborhood, and it's those that live in this area, they know there's like some hills and all that stuff. So I was just running, just trying to eat clean and, all of that. It's funny because it was, I don't know how many years ago now. How long has this gym been open?
This has been 5 years.
Yeah, so it was around this time when I was finishing my year at my office at our agency, where we get kind of close to the end of the year and we're closing out projects. And once we get close to Christmas, then usually our clients go away and we can spend time doing whatever we want to do. So it was at that time where I said, man, I wish I wanted something else, needed some change. And I was just driving by Poplar Tent, and I saw that's when you guys put the Vitality. I think it was probably at the time it said CrossFit Vitality or something, or maybe gym. It had said something like gym of some sort, fitness. And so I I went online and I found a Facebook page, and I think I messaged the Facebook page or something asking for some info, and you guys had the gym down the street, the other place. Needless to say, I got a text or a call from a guy. And so I got like great treatment. Now anybody that calls up, they get Agnew. But I got Steve Pinkerton. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And he's like, man, come, I'd love to have you come by. So, we came by. I don't even know if I did that workout first or if I met you here.
You met me here.
Yeah. So he was like, hey, I'm going to be at the new facility. I'd love to show you around. And that's out of happenstance. Why would you ever even ask, anybody to do that?
I don't know.
It was weird. So I was like, yeah, sure, I would do that. And that was before the crazy Marine Corps came out and ruined our roads out here with the you can't turn left and the whole deal. So I was able to turn left but the driveway was being put in.
Yeah.
And so I just parked at the Circle K and walked over here, and I was really interested in seeing the building, new building, kind of cool. And this very large man in shorts and a t-shirt when it was like 30 out, and this pretty girl was standing next to him, which was your sister.
Yes.
Outside, and he proceeded to give me a tour of this place.
Now, the real story was when he called, he had said something about PT. He wanted maybe some personal training.
Yeah.
So I said, well, cool. I'm going to be over at the new spot. I'll show you around a little bit. And then I realized that we're getting our driveway put in. And I said, shoot, man, I don't have his information. So I'm standing out by the front of the building, and I'm watching people like as they drive by, like, I wonder if that's him. I wonder if that's him. I have no idea. And
yeah, because I guess we hadn't met yet.
Yeah, we hadn't met. So someone pulled into the gas station, which is about 150 yards away, and I see him get out and start walking towards the gym. And I don't see him; I just see his hair, and he's got like a little bit of a mohawk at the time, like it's kind of a weird haircut that I'm not. If people know me, I'm a very
by the book.
By the book.
Yeah.
And here comes Andy Williamson,
which is by the book as well.
Yeah, very by the book. We're two peas in a pod. And it just so happened at the time we walked through and we showed him around. And
yeah, I was amazed. I mean, this building is, if people that are listening haven't been here, I mean, it's beautiful, and it was really, really. I know you building this at the time, there's a lot of stresses, right? You're just wanting to open and try to get your life back in order. But the building was really well built, and there's a lot of neat fits and finishes. It's really, really pretty.
And it's cool when you get someone that's very, when you have people that are from an agency background. What would you call that? How do you,
like a creative world or something?
Yeah, the creative world.
Yeah.
It's a completely different lens that they look through than what I do. And seeing someone like that who you walk through and he sees so many different things that I don't pick up on. So it was an interesting encounter. And then.
And we walked all through upstairs and stuff.
Yeah.
Walked all through upstairs, and he was showing me all the retail space and office space upstairs. And I thought, wow, at the time those buildings weren't built across the street, so you could see uptown really clearly. And what an amazing footing that this place sat on. And I was really kind of surprised because there's a lot of, so I see in color and textures. So I'm seeing like really nice grays and some off blacks and some metal plus concrete plus rubber plus, I was like, my senses were just overflowing.
Little did you know that I just picked gray and black because whatever, that was just what I wanted.
It was great.
How was your first... We need to get into your session.
So after that,
was it a PT session with Steve?
No,
or what was
it was back at the old gym, and it was like, okay, let's go to PT session. Now, I really enjoyed meeting him because a business owner and stuff, and I thought this was a wild risk. Like, we're not talking about just I thought, man, he's got something going on. Like, I want to figure out what's going on here. And we had the gym going on, but all the retail part of this was really interesting to me, and just thinking about, making money in other ways to gain revenue, although I'm sure that's not been the easiest road either. Yeah. But there was like a neat thing going on, and I could see that he was just at the tipping point of, he had this thing like CrossFit Vitality, but he was also playing with the idea of, I think there's another area of fitness going to happen. And I'm also trying to figure out, what do I call this thing? So because this is basically became like a commons, if you will, different businesses and stuff like that. But I could tell that he was right at the place of the tipping point of, he's about to tip into some different things. But he was right there, and there was a lot of stress of just opening the building. So I went to my first workout. at the old facility. And the old facility, those that listen to this, that were at the old facility will remember you opened the door and you went right into the gym. You had the little cubbies on the right and or left, and little key things on the right or whatnot. And then you had the stairs that went upstairs to the offices for staff and stuff. And so I was blessed with having a one-on-one session with a coach at that time named Jason Beatty. And listen, there's folklore of Jason Beatty, right? He was hard. He's a hard coach, but he was great coach if you wanted to see results. But he was crazy. My first experience with CrossFit Vitality was hitting the skier as hard as I could. And then blowing out my hip flexor with a couch stretch that I've never experienced. Who would ever do such a movement like this? So yeah, I had a couple of those. And I think I was going to have 3. And after my second, I was trying to run and leave. I was like, these people are crazy. Like there's who would do this? And
now you do it all the time.
Yeah, I got a punch card.
Laura had yelled down the stairs, because a lot of times people don't want to come up those stairs. I mean, it's a legit staircase that after a workout is pretty
horrible.
It's pretty tough. So I remember Laura being like, "Hey, Andy, come on up." And then you could just see Andy's, the blood rush.
I was ambushed. They had this ambush deal at the old gym. You went up, her cube was right first. And then there was other cubes. And so her cube was right first. And she was sitting there and had the door open. And then there was a chair. And she's like, "Sit down." I'm like, "Oh, God." So I sit down. And then all of a sudden, a chair comes rolling out around. And it's Beatty. And they're like, "So did you like the workout?" What am I going to say to the guy? It was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I hated it. No. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, it was different, man." And he's like, "Do you feel like it was a full body workout?" And I was thinking like, "Man, these two are crazy." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it was definitely a full body workout." And he goes on to explain, "This is a new program we're going to do. We're going to offer." And I thought, who would ever pay for this? It's a horrible thing. So I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Do you think that people would sign up for it?" And all I could think about was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So then Laura goes, "Would you like to sign up for it?" And I said, "Me?" And I thought, like, how do I get out of this hellhole? So I just asked her, like, "Well, how much is it?" It was $100 or something for like 10. It was like $10. It was a punch card back then. We might still have it now. I don't know. And the best was, you had to use it within a certain time period, but I was negotiating the terms because I was looking at this as like a massage. I may come once every other month or something, feel good about myself. And they're like, "Well, no, you've got to use them within the next time period." And I thought, man, and I go, "Well, how much is it?" When she said $100, I would have given him $1,000 cash that I had in the truck at the time. I would have paid $1,000 cash to never come back, ever. But I bought it. And I was the first member of EvoFit.
And you look back, you think back, and it's so crazy how long it's been. But then we move into the new facility, and it's Andy and 2 other people that are doing the classes every day. They're doing EvoFit, and you take a guy like Andy that, in his mind, working out was something different than what we saw working out to be. No different, no worse, just no better, no worse, just different. And so then he gets into this program, and he starts to come more frequently. He starts to, people, instead of saying, "Hey, tell him what he wants to hear," they're telling him what he needs to hear. And now all of a sudden,
that's
it's like,
the truth, though, right?
Yeah,
that is the truth, and I think that's really hard. That's a great leadership statement. Is when you're in the room and everyone's agreeing with you, you're not moving, you're not taking ground. Mm-hmm. And like everything that I want to do in life is I want to take ground, and I think that's a really brilliant statement, because you can find anybody to agree with you. You'll find them. They're out there somewhere. They'll agree with you, and you can just mourn with them and have your pity party, and they'll show up with you and stuff. But like, I really wanted results. Yeah. And that was the thing. And I remember telling, and at the time the 2 coaches were Jason Beatty and Brent. And I remember, I loved coming. They would do certain things. They would, so class at the time, I think, started at 5:30 at that time. But they would say, class really starts at 5, like 10. You're stretching, you're getting mobility. They would teach you about mobility. Never even heard of that before. And then they would talk about nutrition, et cetera. But one thing that really changed things for me was, I was coming maybe like twice a week. And then I threw in like maybe a third time every now and then. And at the time, they were still trying to figure this thing out. This was different than CrossFit. There was a different clientele for UFit. Well, first it was me and a bunch of housewives for like 5 months.
So Andy fit in really well.
Yeah, I did. I loved it. I was like, I love it. But he said to me, I went up to him, I said, hey, what do I do more? Like, I feel like I need to do something a little bit more, maybe add in some weights or something like that. And like Beatty just stone faced, like just wait until I'm done talking, And he's like, well, do you want to get better? And I was like, well, that's kind of why I'm asking you the questions, I mean, he was wild. And so he just finally said, look, when you come, you have to work harder. I was like, all right. And then now you have to come more. And he said, so, and I'm looking at him like, of course you're going to say that. And he said, listen, before I left, he actually just grabbed my arm. He goes, look, I just want to be honest with you. You can do this, but you have to work so hard. If you want to see the results, you have to push yourself past comfort to where you can't talk afterwards. If you can talk and hang out afterwards and do, oh gosh, this is going to be great. If you could do a cool down workout afterwards, you didn't work out. No. You just didn't work out. Like you got to hurt so bad. And if you'll do that and come more, your body will repair itself fast, right? Your mind will repair itself fast. And now I'll tell you what this has done for me is it definitely has, like me and him laugh at it all the time. In fact, we were in the hallway yesterday and we were talking about being uncomfortable. I said, who wants to do that? Yeah. Like it's 2020. I'm done. My uncomfortable level is through the roof. I'm over, Anybody today on December, whatever day it is, 10th, that is still looking for ways to be uncomfortable has not lived in 2020. Yeah. They have obviously have more time on their hands than they need. But yeah, I think the beauty of what I think the gym and the working out and what you guys teach is this will transfer in other areas of life. Creativity, vision, structure, working with people, communication. I love the team workouts. I mean, there's strategy. It's cool. It's really good.
I think one of the things that was interesting for me is I think one of the ways Andy and I became so close so fast was he knew some of the struggles that I was going through, and he'd already been through that with his business. And I guess the first question I would have for you is, can you, in a snapshot, kind of talk about that transition from Florida into the building here in Charlotte? Because it was funny because as I got closer with Andy, I finally went over and looked at his building. He's like, I've got a kind of a warehouse space over in University. And I said, well, shoot, let me head over there. I'd love to check it out. And you walk in, and it is not a warehouse space. I mean, have you been there, Philip?
No.
I mean, you're talking about there are, if I had to guess, 7 to 8 unique settings where it's the camper. Tell me who the guy is, the chopper guy.
Orange County Choppers. So you remember Paul Sr. from Orange County Choppers? Yeah, we bought this camper.
He's got the camper from Paul Sr., and that's his
an office.
It's an office for his director.
So that's what you need. It'd be like an Airstream outside, and that's what you work out of. People come up to it. You open up the window.
So then you've got shipping containers that are all painted up, and then he's got like the old school barn style thing where he's got desks in there. It's just this incredible. You walk in and I was blown away. So. And it's easy for me to walk into that and be like, oh man, this must have just been how it has always been for him. He's just been successful from day one. And the more I got to know him, the more I started to hear the story of what actually took place and how that happened and the happenstance behind.
Yeah, you got to grind, right?
The Chevrolet thing and how that. So just give us the version of how that transition took place.
Well, before I started the agency, I worked in magazines and media. So I was a publisher and editor for many years in large automotive media houses in Los Angeles. And at that time, there was some transitions, and print media was shifting a bit. And I moved from Los Angeles of working out there to launching my own magazine, because that's what entrepreneurs do, right? They work somewhere, and you're like, well, I can do this. So I launched my own magazine in it, and I was designing things in fashion and youth sports, and from everything from shoes to designing cars, etc. And so I just made a magazine around culture and the whole deal, and it was great. And for 3 years we had this magazine. I had a publisher out in California want to buy it, but as a good business will tell you, you're into your third year, and basically I had enough they were offering me enough just to basically pay off my debt. So I made no money, but I had enough to last a week, and which I thought at the time, like, oh, man, I can take a week and find another job. It'd be amazing. I did transition to the agency, but it was by accident. It was because I was working with General Motors corporate and Daimler Chrysler at the time, which Mercedes owned Chrysler at one point in time. And General Motors asked me to continue to work for them. I didn't know, like, do I move to Michigan? Do I do this and that? And they're like, man, you start an agency. So that's a whole other story. So I started an agency, which I had to go borrow $225, $250 from my friend that was a bail bondsman that had cash. And he had a lawyer in his office in order to get my articles of incorporation. Yep. I had no money. I was dead broke. And so we started this agency just to have a business number so I can bill. But I never started it so we could have a business. So I had no business plan, no vision. I just knew that this guy at General Motors was possibly going to hire me and for a couple months. And if I could get maybe 2 months out of this, of course I'll find a real job and stuff. And that was 15 years ago. And so what you don't know is like passion. I think passion will take you really, really far. When I hire people and they have degrees and stuff, and I love that, I want to see how it took for them to finish that in a timely manner, et cetera. But I really want to hire somebody that is going to do the job that I'm hiring them for, whether they're getting paid or not. Like they're just doing this. I think you kind of do that even with your trainers, right? And I've seen you transition through trainers when trainers have come in. They're going to live in a gym, whether they get paid for it or not. And that's a great mindset. And so as I started to, I wouldn't even call it build a business. I think people that build a business have a business plan. Like I had no business plan. I was just hustling like a street hustler just to do any job necessary. So I would Google everything and but I was so thankful to work. So I would pick up trash, bus tables, mow grass. It didn't matter what it was. I just was so thankful to be able to work and be part of community was really important to me. So as I transitioned up here, I moved up here to Charlotte because I thought that I was always on the road. I was on the road probably over 30 some odd weeks out of the year. And because no one goes to Miami, they don't pass through Miami. You have to like go to Miami or Los Angeles. You don't go to Miami. But I had a lot of business that was kind of coming through Charlotte. So somehow I talked my wife into coming up here and I had a chance to move my dad and mom up here and they were getting older and I wouldn't be able to do that. But the long of it is as I was coming up here, I was able to, victory only feels good when you know what defeat tastes like, and there's a lot of fetal position moments, a lot of what ifs, a lot of you're looking at cash flow and stuff. I operated my business all out of cash flow. I didn't want any debt and stuff, and so you're taking risks, you're buying things, equipment, all of this stuff. But like, what's the return? And it's really hard to see. And then really, there's no business owner. Business owners are funny, right? Like you can see people that kind of have money, like you might see a dumb watch or like, oh, they have a car or whatever, and you start to think like, oh, they've earned something, but there's a subliminal language that we speak. Like we can put some stuff off and you're like, okay, I think they know what it's about. And there's a great risk when you are a business owner. We don't get vacation days. We don't get, the bonuses like everyone else. There's great rewards, but there's wild risks. And I think the challenge is it's really lonely. Yeah. And not many people will come alongside you and just be honest.
And I don't think you know that. I don't think there's any way to prepare for that until you go through it. No matter how much your parents, my dad could tell me that until he was blue in the face. You always think you know everything until you get in that situation, and then you realize, holy cow, it is lonely. Mm-hmm. It's a lonely place to be. It's a good way to describe it.
But then there's these highs, right? These wild highs, and in a moment's notice, there's the nerves again, and I think it's very strange. And I really had a difficult time. Really, before I even moved up here, I had a difficult time to finding people that would truly be honest and say like, that I messed this up, or this is how I kind of did banking and this was bad and this is how I build. I had a really tough time finding that network of people, and really, between us, there's only 3 or 4 of us. It's kind of small. And because I don't need somebody I don't care if you're successful, just help, just teach me like how to stop failing.
Yeah. Do you think small business owners or entrepreneurs have bigger highs because they have bigger lows? Do you think that, obviously everybody has highs and lows, but I feel like, man, some of the lows were so low.
Yeah, so I think you have to evaluate what a win is. All right, so like, what's a win? So it could be in anything. A win for working out might be, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. Or a win in business might be like, man, I want to be able to, if I made an extra $300. At my early stint of doing work in the creative field, I was doing work and pricing it out for things that I wanted. I wanted a motorcycle, or I wanted some parts, or I wanted to go to Orlando, and I was living in South Florida, and I just $100 here, $300 here. There was no rhyme or reason. There was no plan. Like, my hourly rate is worth something, but who cares that? Like, I really want to go to this X, or I want to go to dinner tonight. I just made $175. Like, I'm good. I'll work. It doesn't matter. So I think what's funny about us is we don't have the luxury of offering a price for something, because I work at a large store or something, and if you don't want to buy it, I still get paid. So I just go like, cool, you don't want to buy it, I don't care. I'll just keep sweeping or doing whatever. When I say, hey, this is $150, and they say, well, I got like 75, and you're like, oh man, I'll do it for 125. Actually, I got 55. Deal. Yeah. Because I just need the money. Yeah. So the problem is I think what's funny is our lows get low, but when we get highs, we all of a sudden get these crazy, we can earn a lot at times, and you learn, and so you get really big highs. And I think that you have to stack those highs. Those are confidence builders, and you have to remember the lows, but don't live in them. And you can't camp in those things, and you camp in those things too long, and it'll crush you. Yeah.
Now, before we transition to some specific questions on branding, you got to tell me, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. I remember you telling me a Mobile One story, and when you were going to Mobile One and not fully understanding how big Mobile One was. And for those that don't understand, Mobile One is
ExxonMobil. Yeah, so it's
ExxonMobil. Excuse me.
Yeah, and Mobile One's a brand for them. And at the time, it's funny. I was. This is how unlearned or unprepared I was just to even be doing anything like this. People were hiring me for my ability to create elements and spaces, and they were hiring me because I knew how to move industries in a youth market at the time that I was in. But I didn't care who people were. I just loved the fact that like maybe we can go to dinner tonight and tell some stories and have some fun. I was so thankful for any type of community and getting paid for it. And if my family was happy at home, I'm good. And I had a chance to go to Fairfax, Virginia at the time, where ExxonMobil was headquartered right out of Washington, D.C. And man, I was broke. I was in Los Angeles launching a whole drift series, drift cars with crazy, at the time, no one even knew what this was. Now it's everywhere. And we were launching this whole series, and I was in Los Angeles and Anaheim. And I planned it right to like hop in a car with somebody else. I was driving by the airport, so I didn't have to pay for I was broke. I got on a plane, and my wife, was helping me try to find some hotels. And I found this like really seedy place, at least, 40 miles from Fairfax. And it was what I could afford. And I remember that night, one of the main executives was wanting to have dinner with me the night before our meeting, because you're not going to bring in some psycho-looking guy and not kind of prep him. And so I told him where I was staying, and I remember he was on the phone. He just got quiet. He's like, "Wait, like where?" And I was like, "In this area, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Why would you do that?" And I couldn't tell him because I ain't got no money. He's like, "We have great rates at the Ritz-Carlton at Tyson's Corner." I'm like, the Ritz-Carlton, what's a great rate at the Ritz-Carlton at Tyson's Corner? And I was like, oh yeah, they were sold out. He's like, oh, absolutely not. Like they hold rooms for us. I was like, yeah, and I was like so embarrassed. And we went to dinner. I met him for dinner, and I think he was such a he became a great friend, and he quickly can feel on me like you're just getting by. But what was cool was he didn't judge me on that. He knew I could do the job. He just was now like, all right, okay, we're going to have to hide some things, And so I got there to Fairfax that morning, and I come onto this campus that looks like the CIA. I mean, it was crazy. And I remember listening to a podcast flying from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., and somebody talked about working for a Fortune 500 company. So I thought it was like, man, that's wild, And little did I know at the time, my first client ever was General Motors. And at the time, they were Fortune 3. Well, I didn't even know, right? they gave me enough headache to begin with. They shouldn't have been Fortune 3. Right? So I was like, I get there and I remember sitting in this room with this man, his name's David. And before we go into this meeting, and I looked at him and I was like, it's like a nice place. And he goes, well, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, like, where are you guys at, like, on the Fortune list, that list? And I remember him looking, I was on his right. I remember him looking and he smiled. He goes, what? I said, there's like that Fortune list. And he said, the Fortune 500? And I said, yeah. Like, where do you guys? And he smiled and he said, are you serious right now? And I got embarrassed again. I was like, oh man, I'm sorry. And I knew that I just didn't do my homework, right? I knew what I was going to meet with him about. I just didn't. And he said, Andy, we're Fortune 1. So we're doing $40 billion a quarter, not a year, a quarter. And I said, that seems like you're doing great. Doing really good. And he's like, okay. And he smiled. And I remember him grabbing my arm and he said, just be yourself. Just tell us what we need to do. And I was like, oh, okay. I go in and there's this huge board meeting and I'm trying to behave and contain myself. Of course, I look a certain way, but I think I look conservative.
Well.
Okay, right. So I think I look a certain way. My wife always tells me, I'm like, why are people staring at me? Like I'm going in a restaurant, they're like, what's he doing, And so I felt weird at that meeting because they're all like, okay, they're all I could feel the tension. I was like, so it's great to be here, and I'm going through my presentation. We had an amazing meeting. It was incredible, changed my whole life. I remember getting to go to lunch and they were like, hey, we want to take you off campus. I guess they didn't want to bring me to the cafeteria. We want to take you off campus. There was 2 of them. And the guy finally just said like, hey, like we have to have you. We need you. And I was like, oh, what a boost. And I think my wife was pregnant with my son. And it was such what a boost. They tell me to fly home and get them a scope of work. I have no idea what that means. Get a scope of work. I'm Googling scope, work, working in scope. I'm like, what is this, right? I remember putting some stuff down and I emailed it to him. And he called me and he said, hey, look, man, like I think you could do this, but you obviously are a really bad businessman. And I was like highly offended, right? I was like sitting in my carport in South Florida, I didn't even have an office, highly offended. And he's like, dude, you have sharpened your little pencil so sharp that you're putting numbers down that like, there's just no way you're going to make it. And I was like, but I'll do my best. He was like, no. We're going to pay you, but I need you to be able to buy printers. I need you to be able to hire people. I need you to be able to do things. And you just can't. If you're going to give a service, the service that you're giving, you don't even know the value of what you're giving. And it helped me a ton. So he changed that for me. And I started to be able to make a little bit of money. Didn't make a ton, but I got confidence. I made some money. And then I started to figure out after a bit, people were like, hey, you're good at this. We didn't know what this was or who they were speaking, but yeah. But you grind. Remember, I will always remember that hotel. I will always remember sweating bullets, wondering if they were going to pick up the dinner that night. Because, we're trying to get work. So you pick up the dinner. Yeah. And I was even texting my wife, like, what credit card could I use? And maybe even trying to go to the bathroom to tell the waiter to put half on one credit card. Like, I didn't have money, and it was crazy. But, those are the things that build you for times like even a 2020. Yeah. And allow you to know that, hey, I'm going to make it. We're going to get through this.
I wonder the correlation between people that start like you did to multiple businesses. There's got to be a correlation to if someone starts and bootstraps it themselves, they're probably going to be more prone to have multiple businesses. And I think that's interesting because I look at, because now people can understand this isn't somebody that is, doing some social media stuff on the side to raise some money. This is his primary business where he's working with the number 1 and number 3 companies.
Yeah, and then at the time I signed Coca-Cola shortly after, so I had like 1, 3, and 6, but I didn't even understand it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But all they wanted was authenticity, honesty, but being caring with honesty. There's a way to get somebody to do something. A little sugar goes a long way. But you were just talking about, I think what brought to my mind, what you were saying is, how does somebody, when they kind of bootstrap, they pull something out of the ground, why are they prone to maybe even do something else? And I think because we figure out, I can make money doing this. You know what entrepreneurs are? They're just need fulfillers. Mm-hmm. We see there's a need and we could do it better. Let us do that. Right. I mean, I think, tell me about the gym, right? I mean, your story of, being in the Marine Corps and recruiting people and then working out with them, et cetera, and you created a passion, but there was a better way to serve these people. The gym smelled a little bit different. The equipment was off. And so you invested. We have nice equipment here. We have a nice gym, right? But do you really have to do that? The answer most people would say is like, well, no, we can just have other equipment. But the thing is what kind of clientele do you want?
Yeah.
There's a difference in that. Do I want the $19.99, clientele? It's great, but in order for me to make any money, I'm going to have 500 members at $19.99 just to even cover my cost. And it just doesn't make sense. You got to start working a little bit smarter. Not continue to work hard, but smarter, I think.
I used to think it's funny that the layers that have been added to my knowledge about this, because I used to think that shooting a video with an iPhone was like the greatest thing in the world. And then you get to see, I get someone like Philip that has all this knowledge, and then you see it on this macro scale of, just the production style of what goes into it and the moving parts. And I think that's been interesting. I think that as business owners, it's really hard to start and figure out where do I start if I want to get my brand out there, if I want to grow vitality, where in the world? Because if I look at Andy's stuff, it's like, okay, well, I'm on a different universe, and the reality is many of these small businesses can't afford to have someone like Philip on staff producing stuff. So what would you tell people? Hey, I want to grow my brand. Is it just content? Well,
I think what's really awesome of what you're saying is the root of, before the question of what do I want to do for my brand, et cetera, is what is their win? And usually a small business owner is I need to sell something. I need to make money in some way. And really, to be honest with you, there's some entrepreneurs that just want to be able to do this, whatever this is, and not work for somebody else. And they're good with, if they made $30,000 from somebody else, if they made $30,500, they're like, killer, I'm in it. Then there's some that just are built to earn. There's a gifting on knowing how to earn. There's a gift with that. So at the end of this, you have to say, what is my win? And if it is gym memberships, or if it's clients, or if it's shooting more content, whatever the case is, we got to find the win. And then you work backwards from the win. So if it's a coffee shop down the street and I need to serve X amount of cups a day just to cover my overhead, well, then I need to do that plus 20% or 30% so I can make money and stay in business. So that means that if nobody knows about you, then they're never going to come to your coffee shop. So there is an investment up front that is very hard for most business owners to swallow, because they're barely just getting the door open. So a lot of times they just forget the part of, how do I want people to perceive my brand? How and what I am doing, will they come back and gravitate to me again? And so I think before you even launch on stuff, you're creating storyboards of looking at different brands that are doing it well. And we call those best practices, right? And you're saying, okay, that coffee shop looks a certain way. That's why people like to sit in it. They have free Wi-Fi. Okay, so they're sitting there longer. They don't just buy one cup of coffee. They buy a cup of coffee, a croissant, and another cup of coffee. Okay, it's nice. It's clean inside. It's the people behind there remember their names. There's all of these things are trends. That is actually building your brand. You don't even know it, but you're saying, okay, I want to be able to achieve what that coffee shop looks like and does. That's a successful business. I want to emulate that. So you got to really break them all down. And if you don't, then you're going to have dirty bathrooms. You're going to have, you're going to serve coffee only, and you're going to forget that there's a great revenue stream with little to-go bars and cookies and biscuits and all that stuff. So you got to just take your time. And not all business owners are good at that. They're good at maybe solving the problem. So they got to get a guy like a Philip, or get a guy like myself that can come along and just say, hey, you want to be that. That's your win. Let's back up and let's look at all the ingredients that make that a win. And then you have to say, I'm willing to try to figure out how to do that or not. And no one has the money right away to be that, but you can fake it till you make it, right? Yeah. There's no there's no money that it takes in order to clean tables really well and keep bathrooms really clean and to be smiling when people come in and to make a drink. And when they say, hey, this was a little off, say no more, put it, I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to make you a brand new one. That stuff doesn't cost anything, but that's great customer service. And that's creating great experiences for somebody. I will come back. If the person looked at me and says, okay, well, that's what you ordered. I'm like, all right, man, it's not what I ordered, but could you make another one? And then they go ring me up again. Like, you've lost me. Yeah. So you also have to train that servant piece, which leadership is serving. A lot of people say, man, I'm going to be a leader because I'm going to lead. No, you're a manager. You have a title, but leadership is serving. Leadership really at the end of it is influence. I'm rambling here, but I think this is really good for business owners or even people that are working in a business that want to achieve. The difference of being a given title as a manager or a leader in a business or even owning a business, and the difference of somebody that has influence, and this will resonate with you well, being in the military, is when two people both have a similar need and they both throw it out to a group of people of, will you help me with X? But whoever has the people, the hearts of the people, is a leader. Whoever has to pull people to them because they're paying them to do something, they're a manager. But when you have the hearts of people, you can create a revolution.
That's really interesting. I think I wish more people had access. I take it for granted that I have Andy that since 5.5, 6 years ago, I see him 10 times a day. But most people don't have that.
It's the best part of your day.
Yeah, exactly. Most people, there's parasites out there, and right now, digital and social media stuff and these campaigns on Facebook and Instagram are so big that everyone's trying to throw their hat in the ring. So it becomes very confusing and loud to business owners to make the right choice and to do the right thing and spend the money in the right way. Because look, I'll spend money if I know it's going to give me a return. But most of these guys spend it the first time and it doesn't give them a return because they're going the wrong way. Then they're done.
They're done. And that's the hard thing with social. I mean, me and you talk about it all the time, and you say, and I'll say, man, creating content and getting it in front of people, because now we all live off our phones and our iPads, and we do it because our kids are doing it. And now just the world of 2020 and everything's virtual, et cetera. So really, whoever wins the hearts and minds of our youth on a 3.5 by 5 inch screen wins, essentially. You look at, I love it when people like to make fun of the Kardashians because they got paid for doing nothing, but they're probably the most brilliant business people in the world. They've figured out how to sustain it and make it into something. So they knew where their audience was. So who's my audience? Because I might have a big pond, but I just need to catch some fish. And if I can put them in a smaller barrel and I can catch fish all day long, that's a lot smarter. That may cost me a little bit more up front, but I'm gonna get that return. You always got to think of this: your best customers are return customers, and you make them happy and they bring a friend or two, and then you make them happy and they bring a friend or two, and you make them happy, so it multiplies. Social media is a great way to do it. And yes, we're all fighting noise. There's noise everywhere. So then you got to stick out a little bit differently, and you got to be really communicate what you want people to understand. You got to remember, you got to drip it. Just because you did one post like 3 months ago, and you think, well, I did that one post and no one cared. Man, there's hundreds of thousands of millions of people that are going to possibly see you again that are never going to scroll past like one flick, right? No one's going on Instagram flicking down. I mean, you're basically just looking at a couple posts and stuff. So you got to constantly lower funnel. Can I talk about a funnel for a second?
Yeah.
A sales funnel. This is really good for people. This could be even for homes, parents, or business owners, or even working somewhere. So a sales funnel is always the last piece is, let's just call it a sale. That's the win. But in order to get to the win, you have this big sales funnel, and you have to have awareness, because no one's going to buy anything from you or do anything if they're not aware of you. So you got to be out there somewhere. So you have awareness. The next thing is potentially consideration. They've looked at you, they've seen you, they've seen the gym, or they've seen you've seen photography or video, or they've seen a coffee shop, and then they go online and they find out, because no one's ever going to come anywhere without them sniffing you digitally. So if your digital pages aren't at least up to current, and your social pages, they rarely will sit on your website much anymore. They want to see what you're dripping and doing. What's your culture is they'll see that through posts. So consideration is a big thing, because before they ever try you and reach out and say, hey, how much can I come in to see the gym? Or, hey, can I I'm going to get the address to go to this coffee shop. They got to have an awareness, consideration, and then they'll have a trial. So once you get them to a trial, you can potentially get them back. And really, the try isn't the win; it's return, and then you get a sale. You get a good sale once they try it, potentially come back again. There's a sale. You can take that sales funnel and map it out on anything that you're doing. I want to lose weight. Well, if I'm not going to do the research on what's going on, Jess said it to me the other day. We were just talking about having fun. And she said, listen, if you want a different result, then you got to change something. All right, so that means, okay, something up top has to change. I got to be disciplined in doing it, and I got to keep on going, and I'll get my win. But that also means controlling your mind, because the noise is crazy, right? The noise online and the noise around us is so crazy that we can get emotionally moved really fast if we don't get our mind under control, because that thing will hit you, but it's fine. They'll lose breath if you could keep on going. So the sales funnel is really important to figure out how to keep people focused on you. And content does that. And then boosted posts, of course, and stuff will help get it in front of them. But look, Steve, we got to go back to the first thing that we kind of talked about, which was, how does all of this happen? It just seems like, man, you're always successful. No, I barely could pay for a seedy hotel in Washington, D.C. I worked out of my carport. I borrowed $250 from my best friend that was a bail bondsman. There was years of like, you're just grinding. And sometimes that's even like working out and losing weight. You're grinding, and all of a sudden something tips, and you get a little stronger, or clothes fit differently, and you're like, man, I achieved. And I think people give up too quickly.
I agree.
I think they give up in a lot of things too quickly. And when it starts to hurt, you give up too quickly. And man, everyone is hurting. We're all in this kind of together. Can I tell another story about the gym?
Yeah.
What it taught me? So Beatty once, as he was training, we were working out. He would get mad because we didn't have EvoFit at the time. It was just boot camp. We didn't have a brand at the time. So, but it was me and a bunch of housewives. And then Saturday, we had our Saturday workout, and every now and then some CrossFit guys would come over on Saturdays and do the workout. And he was highly offended with them saying like, whatever, I just wanted a cool down kind of workout. Yeah. So I'm going to do boot camp. And he was raging mad. And the funny thing about him was he can go over to the CrossFit and wipe any of those guys in the CrossFit. Yep. So he's not programming something that's just for losers. It's a different style of workout. And so he was hell-bent on somebody from boot camp beating somebody from CrossFit, in the workout and stuff. So of course I'm like the only guy, so I'm the lab rat. But the one thing that he would just say to me is like, you gotta control your mind. Your mind's gonna tell you you're hurting. Your mind's gonna tell you it's time to stop. But they only got 3 to 5 seconds left in them. You got to just keep on going past that 3 to 5, and you just got to give it another 5 to 6 seconds. We're not talking 15 minutes. Just 5 or 6 seconds more where you're continuing, you're pushing, you're play pushing, whatever the case is. If once they see you 3 minutes, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5, they start giving up.
Yep.
You've gained ground and you're winning. And I think people just give up too quickly.
And you look at that too, and when you give up too quickly, it becomes easier and easier to do that the next time. Versus if you can just hang on and you get that taste of a little win. What happens to me is I forget all the little wins that I may have had, and all I remember are the taste of how bad it was when I lost. Yeah. So that's always been my motivation is, man, I want to get out of that losing category. Yeah. And I become obsessed with winning. And I think that people, if they don't experience that little win, it just goes off the rails. We see it with the nutrition clients. We see it with athletes in the gym. It's not easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't be the most obese society on the planet.
I got to touch on what you're saying, because you guys do this very well. 2 things come to my mind when you say that. One is we give up really quickly and we don't get to taste that win. So then they don't even know what that victory feels like, and they were so close to it. But they do get to taste something. and they're tasting a little bit of a defeat. And whether they like it or not, they're creating routines. And it's a routine of not ever good enough.
Yep.
And it stacks and it stacks and it stacks. Whereas we're trying to get people to stack wins. If we can't even get them to 1 and they can't taste that and let them know that, yeah, it's going to hurt again, but don't you remember how it felt, and get them to the next step, then they're going to stop every time right before it.
Yep.
And they're getting what they're sowing. They just don't like it. And I think what I see what you guys do, what changed my life in nutrition and health, wasn't that, you said it really well. I was running all through Skybrook, and I was running in the morning. I never missed it. Rain, even the few times it snowed, I never missed a morning running, ever. I wasn't very good at it. I just knew I needed to get my body to do something. And I didn't have the education of, if you moved your body a certain way, you could probably get better results. What did I need? I needed a coach. But here's the problem is, if we come here and tell the coaches that they don't, like, if we don't listen, then we're going to get the result of what it is. And I think it's the same thing in life, right? You have marriages that are falling apart, but it's always somebody else's fault.
Yep.
You're in financial ruin, but you don't understand they didn't pay me well. Well, you didn't need to buy this, and this. And it's fine. If we can just take ownership of decisions that were made that put us in the position we are, good or bad, then we can move forward. And sometimes it takes a coach. It takes a good nucleus around you that just says, like, yo, I love you. We'll still go to dinner. But, like, I'm just telling you, that's why you're hurting.
Yeah.
That's why you're off. And I think a gym setting like this is very healthy. For me personally, I used to have gym memberships down in South Florida, but I would go to the smoothie bar. And I went to one Pilates class. I went to, of course, right? And I would sit at the machines. I didn't really know how to use them, but I would eat my smoothie and I would text and be on the internet. And I was like, yeah, I was at the gym for 45 minutes. I didn't work out at all. But I had a gym membership forever. When you come here and you have coaches and you have community that is helping bring you along, that's the same in life, man. And now as I look at 2020, and isolation is the tool of the enemy. This is bad because now you have people that are so nervous and scared. And I want people to stay healthy. I don't want them to be mindful, but man, they got to get healthy, and healthy is not staying in fear at home. We got to get them out. You
think about isolation. You talk about that. I mean, as a business owner, you talk about being lonely. This is on a whole nother level. And I think one of the many reasons that I've been very fortunate is I've got a group of, 3 or 4 people that I can listen to that I am perfectly fine with saying, hey, listen, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I look at how far we've come on the social media side because of Andy and just the things that he's said over the years, and really he's the reason we decided to push to get Phillip on here and to pay him a inflated salary that he doesn't deserve. I agree. I'm just kidding, Phillip.
Oh my God! But I won't be making our plan today at 1:30.
But I'll tell you this: as I wrap this up, I think this is very interesting. If you guys take nothing away, I don't know how you couldn't take anything away from the branding side of it and just from a work ethic side of it. But think about the relationships that you have, and think about what we've talked about in the past about your first interaction with someone. You never know what that relationship is going to be. And, maybe I become short and I don't plan my day well, and I don't have time to meet with Andy, and he never comes and tries a class, and we don't have Laura and Jason, who did a great job to get him signed up. He doesn't continue to do it. In turn, he doesn't end up being one of our founding members of the EvoFit program. Now I live 50 feet away from him. I live one house away from him. Think about what you just said there. Not only was I the first person in boot camp at the time, but when you guys started to evolve a brand and you started to say, hey, this workout thing is a thing. We just don't know what to call it. And I was at the time calling, remember before CrossFit shoes, we used to have cross trainers. Yeah. And I was like, man, there's something, you guys have something going on here, and it's kind of like cross training.
and we couldn't figure it out. And I remember we were coming up with a bunch of names, and I was like, man, let me go back and just start playing with names and playing with typefaces and logos and stuff. And I mean, I don't know if you remember when I came in, I had like printed socks and things and all kind of stuff. And I'm like, hey, like, I know that you're probably going to think it's crazy, but like, this is a brand, like you can, and it was so beautiful. And now look at EvoFit. I mean, that's an army, right?
You look at the logo and people don't understand how hard it was
to get
and
to that
how
point.
much time it took to get to that point. And it's crazy how things evolve. And, what we didn't even touch on is the fact that, nowadays when people see me, they'll say, hey, you're the guy that rents the gym from the church, right? And it's like, because we have this massive church that Andy's built that rents Saturday afternoon until Sunday evenings. So, all of that throughout the last 6 or 7 years has been such an incredible ride. And now, Andy spends his time in an office that used to be, Repucom, then Nielsen, and now it's the Factory Church HQ, and he's 20 feet away from us. So it's so, you just never know who you're going to run into or who you're going to meet. And like we said the last time, those first 5 or 6 minutes of interaction will determine how the next, however, 6 or 7 years play out. So we could take this thing on for another 3 hours, I'm sure.
Well, invite me back and we'll talk like persistence, and we'll talk, the whole church thing makes me nervous. I don't like talking about it because church is strange and church people are crazy. Keep this in here. Church people are crazy.
I'm gonna start it with this.
Yeah, do it. Church people are crazy and it's strange. But I think when you can apply what you just said, which is enjoy meeting people and not be whimsical in the fact of not knowing where that relationship could go, and helping people no matter what they could ever give you back, that could change you can shift the atmosphere. And maybe we'll come back and we'll talk because I'm sure people see this crazy church thing kind of going on, and they probably have no idea that I've never taken $1 from this place.
Yep, they don't.
And that's I'm constantly looking for ways to help others. But how it's changed my life. But I really couldn't have gotten to this place actually without Vitality, and even being nutrition minded. Even though you yell at me for not sleeping a lot, I sleep more than I used to, and just taking and not quitting right when you think you should.
Yeah.
But thank you for allowing me to be here.
This is great.
Poopy, you added such great flavor to this thing today.
I know. Sometimes people that are listening, they're like, man, I forgot somebody else was in the room. And then you say like, hey, or see y'all later.
Oh, man.
And I do think that if I can come back, I would love to show how you guys transitioned what you did socially and marketing wise when you did hire somebody.
Yeah.
Because your brand shifted very, very well. And it was an investment that you had to. And I can look back as a third party 100 feet away. And I remember in your office saying like, that's a really good hire if you can figure out how to do it. Now I'm hoping you fire him so I can hire him. But
I would like to work in that Orange County chopper office.
I can give you that. We can make that happen today. But I think we come back and even show how your brand evolved. Yeah. I can evaluate your brand, how you evolved, and where I think your future is going to go.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Wrap it up.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching Built by Vitality. I'm Phillip Lewis, sitting next to Steve Pinkerton. Have a great day.
See you.